Welcome back to the deep dive, where we take your stack of reading, your research, your notes, your sources, and instead of leaving you drowning in it all, we try to boil it down into something you can actually use.
Exactly.
And if you're listening right now, chances are you're not just, curious about brain health. You might actually be living the problem we're tackling today.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your memory feels a little shaky, or you find yourself getting distracted all the time. You can't focus on what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
That feeling, that really common feeling of being totally overwhelmed, like my brain is just full and it's shutting down, that's exactly what we're diving into.
And we have I think, a critical mission today. The sources you gave us, they offer a really honest look at this widespread experience. Chronic stress.
Right.
For so many people, that feeling of being behind, of having way too much on your plate, it's not just, an inconvenience, it's a neurological crisis. The science really confirms that chronic stress is genuinely devastating for the parts of our brain that do our highest level thinking.
That sounds pretty alarming. But this isn't going to be all doom and gloom.
No, not at all.
Our mission today is to take that scientific diagnosis and immediately pivot to the solutions, which are actually incredible.
Yeah, the same brain science that shows us the damage also gives us a clear blueprint for how to repair it.
So we're pulling out 4 key strategies, 4 pillars of brain resilience that can counteract stress and help you rebuild your focus, your memory, and your emotional control.
Precisely. We're going beyond just general wellness advice and getting into the biological how of neuro repair.
Yeah.
We need to understand the threat before we can really appreciate the power of the solution.
Well, the source material kicks off with this really powerful, super relatable anecdote that just grounds this whole thing in reality. It's the story of the author. She's a science journalist who was, in her words, so eager to show the world what she could do.
I think we can all relate to that feeling.
Oh, totally. She described this relentless pace, working tirelessly, interviewing everyone, just running on fumes, and, routinely clocking out at 2 a.m.
And that intense, sustained pressure, especially when you feel like you have, quote, no time to think, that is the perfect recipe for a total collapse.
Right.
That's the definition of chronic stress. Not acute stress, which is, helpful. It helps you slam on the brakes to avoid an accident.
That's the good stuff.
That's protective. Chronic stress, the 2-year project, the constant worry, the 2 a.m. emails, that stuff is corrosive.
And the result for her was just a classic total burnout. She felt her brain, which is the tool of her trade, right? It just gave up.
It's not just being tired.
No, it was a functional failure. She suddenly found she was not able to plan anymore. That high-level task just gone. She couldn't concentrate on work, couldn't remember basic things.
And here's the part that always comes with that cognitive failure.
Yeah.
The emotional side. She said her emotions were over the place, but mostly low. That lack of planning, the foggy memory, the mood swings, these are the real measurable consequences of a brain that is under siege. It's not a lack of motivation, it's a structural problem.
That story is such a perfect entry point. It shows what happens when we just let stress run wild. So what is actually happening under the hood?
Okay, so let's unpack this. We can think about it as the biological attack and then the neurological defense. First up, the science of the toxic cocktail.
Right, let's start with the bad news then. What is this toxic cocktail and how does it target our brain like that?
Well, the science is pretty blunt. That relentless feeling of being overwhelmed keeps a toxic cocktail of stress hormones circulating in your system constantly.
And we're talking mainly about cortisol here.
We're talking mainly about cortisol,
Yeah.
yes. It's a hormone that's crucial for that short-term stress response, but when it stays high for weeks, for months, it basically starts acting like a poison on specific parts of the brain.
So high cortisol is the trigger. But why do some parts of the brain get hit harder than others?
Because the 2 most critical areas for our thinking and memory are just, they're riddled with receptors for these stress hormones. They're super vulnerable to a cortisol surge.
And the first area is?
The first area is the frontal lobe.
The frontal lobe, so the big part of the brain right behind your forehead. We always call it the control center.
We do. And if you want a corporate analogy, the frontal lobe, specifically the prefrontal cortex, or PSC, is its brain CEO.
Okay.
It handles all your executive functions. This is where you access your knowledge, where you do complex planning, deciding what to do first, what to do next. It's the core of your working memory.
Like a mental whiteboard.
Exactly like a mental whiteboard you use to solve problems.
So when the journalist felt she couldn't plan anymore, that was her PFC basically shutting down.
That's it, but it does more than just plan. The PFC is also your brake. your brake system. It's what keeps strong, distracting emotions under control. So when she said her emotions were over the place, that was the inhibitory function getting weaker. Stress basically handcuffs the CEO and lets the more primitive emotional parts of the brain just run wild.
That makes so much sense. It connects the inability to focus with that emotional turbulence. They're not separate problems.
They're two sides of the same biological coin. Absolutely. Now, the second area that gets hit really hard is the hippocampus.
The hippocampus, that's the seahorse-shaped thing deep inside the brain, right? Our memory core.
It are the core of memory, yes, but think of it more like a librarian. It's what encodes new information and decides what gets filed away from short-term into long-term storage.
Okay, the librarian. I like that.
It's also vital for mood regulation. And critically, the hippocampus is one of the few brain areas that can grow new neurons, a process called neurogenesis.
And it's also highly susceptible to stress.
Highly. So we have the prefrontal cortex planning, focus, control, and the hippocampus new memories, context.
So why does cortisol cause so much chaos in these two specific places? You mentioned it literally shrinks the cells.
This is where it gets a little scary, but also reversible, which is the good news.
Okay.
When cortisol floods these areas for a long time, it starts a biological process. It doesn't usually kill the neurons right away,
Right.
but it starts what's called dendritic atrophy.
Dendritic atrophy. Okay, let's break that down.
So think of a brain cell, a neuron, as having a main body and then all these long, complicated branches reaching out, like a tree in winter.
Okay.
Those branches are called dendrites, and those branches are the receiving antennas for all the incoming signals from other neurons.
So the more branches, the more connections, and the stronger the network.
Exactly. And chronic stress, that high cortisol, causes these branches to physically pull back. They disappear.
Wow.
High stress also suppresses a really important protein, something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF.
BDNF, I've heard of that. It's like Miracle Grow for the brain, right?
Yeah, that is the perfect analogy. It's brain fertilizer. BDNF is essential for keeping neurons healthy and for growing new ones. And when cortisol suppresses it, those branches just prune themselves back, the contacts break down, and the whole network just doesn't work as well.
So it's not in your head. It's not just that you're tired. The actual biological network you need for planning and memory is physically damaged.
It's compromised. The
Yeah.
information just can't get through as efficiently. And this is measurable.
Yeah.
It leads directly to the symptoms, the poor focus, the bad memory, the emotional volatility.
That sounds pretty permanent, but you said this is where the brain science gets optimistic.
It gets very optimistic. This is the pivotal point. The adult brain has this amazing quality called plasticity.
Right.
So while chronic stress causes this atrophy, the right things can trigger the reverse process. We can form new connections, and in the hippocampus, even grow new cells.
So we're moving from the problem to the solution.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We're talking about the 4 pillars of brain resilience. The real actionable things you can do to regrow those branches and rebuild those networks.
Okay, let's do it. Pillar number 1. And the sources say this is maybe the most powerful tool for brain repair there is.
Yes.
Physical activity. Moving your body.
And this is always a frustrating advice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone knows they should move more, but when you're burnt out, the last thing you feel like doing is going for a run.
Right.
That's why we need to focus on the biological why, to bridge that gap between knowing you should and actually doing it.
We tend to think of exercise as being for our heart or for weight.
And that completely misses the most powerful benefit for a stressed out brain. I mean, yes, increasing blood flow and oxygen is good, but the real magic is molecular.
Okay.
When you do aerobic activity, anything that gets your heart rate up a bit, your muscles and your brain start pumping out those growth factors we just talked about.
It ramps up the BDNF production.
It doesn't just ramp it up, it explodes. Physical activity is the most potent natural way to boost your BDNF levels. And that BDNF, that fertilizer, does 2 key things. First, it directly stimulates the regrowth of those damaged branches.
So it literally reverses the damage from the cortisol.
It directly counteracts it. It encourages new connections. And second, especially in the hippocampus, high levels of BDNF actively promote the birth of new neurons. You are physically expanding your brain's hardware.
Your sources have that great line. While you're working out, you're not just working on a gorgeous body, you're building a gorgeous mind.
That's it. That reframes the whole thing.
It really does. It makes exercise feel like a non-negotiable brain maintenance task, not just a fitness goal. But what about the intensity? A lot of people listening are already overwhelmed. What's the minimum effective dose?
This is the best part. This is such a relief, and it's directly from the research. You do not need to train for a marathon.
Thank
The
goodness.
most powerful results, surprisingly, came from moderate, consistent effort.
Okay, so what are the specifics on that study?
They had a group of people who just walked briskly. That's a pace where you can still talk, but you probably couldn't sing a song.
Okay, I can do that.
They did this 3 times a week for just 45 minutes.
3 times a week, 45 minutes of brisk walking. That is so achievable.
And the results were, they were profound. Using brain imaging, they found that the hippocampus, that memory core, was already being resized. It was measurably getting bigger in the walking group.
Wow. And what was the control group doing?
Just stretching exercises. And this is the kicker. The stretching group did not show the same result.
Ah, so it's not just about moving or relaxing, it's the aerobic part that triggers the BDNF.
It's about engaging the engine. That's what tells the brain to release the fertilizer.
So if you're staring at a deadline at 4 p.m., the most productive thing you could do might be to take that 45-minute walk.
That is the complete reframing this science demands. Activity isn't a drain on your energy, it is an investment in your cognitive capacity.
All right, let's move to the second pillar, sleep. This ties right back to the journalist's story, working until 2 a.m.
Sleep is always the first thing to go when we're stressed, which is the ultimate irony because it's so self-sabotaging.
Right.
A lack of rest quickly becomes a chronic stressor in itself. It just puts more and more pressure on that frontal lobe and hippocampus.
We all know we feel foggy after a bad night, but what's the actual biological cost?
Well, it's immediate and it's cumulative. Even after just one night of bad sleep, your concentration is worse, your memory is less reliable. But when you do that night after night, the frontal lobe starts to seriously malfunction. Its ability to plan and focus just collapses.
So it's more than just passive rest time. What's the active work that sleep is doing?
It is entirely active. Sleep has two vital jobs: reorganization and cleaning.
Okay, reorganization.
Reorganization. So think about all the connections your brain made during the day. Sleep is when your brain sorts through all that. It actively strengthens the good connections, the things you learn, the memories you want to keep, and it deletes the bad connections, the neural clutter, the noise.
So it's like a knowledge curator.
It is. And the second job is cleaning. The sources say the brain literally cleans itself from gray matter waste.
What does that mean?
It's referring to something called the glymphatic system.
The glymphatic system sounds like plumbing for the brain.
That is a perfect analogy. It's the brain's unique waste removal system. During deep sleep, your brain cells actually shrink a little, which opens up more space between them. And that allows cerebrospinal fluid to rush through and literally wash away all the metabolic junk that builds up while we're awake.
And what kind of junk are we washing away?
We're cleaning out all sorts of debris, but crucially, neurotoxic proteins like beta amyloid. If you skip this nightly cleaning cycle, that waste builds up, it clutters the system, and it interferes with clear thinking. It feels exactly like burnout.
That makes an 8-hour-a-night commitment sound absolutely non-negotiable.
It is. The journalist made a point of making up for lost hours. She started treating sleep like a critical part of her recovery, not a luxury.
Okay, pillar number 3, nutrition. Giving the brain the building blocks it needs to repair itself.
Now, this is always a tricky area of research. Food studies are really complex, and the sources are clear that it's hard to find one single magic bullet, vitamin or mineral.
So it's not about a single supplement, it's about the whole pattern of eating.
The whole pattern. And on that, the research is crystal clear. The sources are definitive. People who follow the Mediterranean diet have better brain for a longer time, better memory, better concentration.
Okay, but we need to be really specific about what Mediterranean diet means here. It's not just pizza and pasta, right?
No, not at all. The foundation of the real health-focused Mediterranean diet is large amounts of fruits, vegetables, and legumes. That's your base.
Lots of antioxidants fighting off the stress damage.
Exactly. But then there are the key components for the actual brain structures.
And that is?
Fish. Fish is listed as essential because it provides omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA and EPA. These aren't optional nutrients. They are essential building blocks for your brain cells.
Why are they so important, especially when the brain is trying to regrow those branches we talked about?
Because they make up the cell membrane itself. And a cell membrane that's rich in omega-3s is more fluid, it's more flexible, it allows signals to pass faster and more efficiently.
Oh, okay.
If you're going to regrow those branches, you need the absolute best materials. And omega-3s are that material.
So we have the antioxidant base from fruits and veggies and the structural fats from fish. What about the other secret ingredients the sources mentioned?
Yep, they specifically call out 2 others: high-quality olive oil and nuts. They're called the two secret ingredients for keeping the brain healthy long-term.
So it's a whole system. It's anti-inflammatory, it's structural, it gives the BDNF the materials it needs to do the repairs.
Exactly. You have to provide the premium materials, not the processed inflammatory stuff we tend to reach for when we're stressed.
Now, we have to talk about the red wine thing.
Ah, yes.
It's always associated with this diet. What do the sources say?
They are very, very blunt on this. The research on brain health is clear. Alcohol, including red wine, is not good for your brain.
Yeah.
The direct quote is, "It is not for your brain."
So if you're doing this for brain resilience, leave the wine out of it.
Leave it out. Yeah.
All right, so we have movement, sleep, and nutrition. That brings us to our fourth and final pillar, which is about training the mind itself, meditation.
This one is maybe the most fascinating because it's where we see how a mental practice creates real physical changes in the brain.
There's a lot of solid science on this now, isn't there?
Piles of it. It confirms that consistent daily meditation has really beneficial effects on focus, attention, and emotional regulation.
But how does just sitting still, how does that counteract the physical damage of cortisol?
Because meditation isn't passive. At its core, it's not about emptying your mind. It's an active training of your attention. Think about the process. You close your eyes, you focus on your breath, and then what happens?
Your mind wanders instantly.
Instantly. It loses itself on something you have to do. That's the brain's default stress response. That mind wandering is what makes chronic stress so exhausting. The training, the mental push-up, happens when you notice your mind has wandered, and you gently, without judgment, bring it back to your breath.
So every time you bring it back, that's one rep.
That's one rep for your brain. You are exercising the connection from your CEO, the prefrontal cortex, to the rest of your brain. Every time you do that, you strengthen the neural pathways for focus, for flexibility, and for emotional control. You are literally rebuilding the function that cortisol tried to shut down.
The source says it's like building a giant muscle in your frontal lobe, and you can actually see these changes on a brain scan.
You can. Studies show consistent meditators have increased gray matter density in the prefrontal cortex. It's physical proof that this training works.
And again, this doesn't mean you have to go to a monastery for a month. What's the practical starting point?
The key is just consistency, not how long you do it. The sources suggest a really practical start. Just 5 minutes a day.
5 minutes.
That's it, first thing in the morning or right before bed. It's a small commitment that makes it possible, even when you're feeling completely overwhelmed.
So these 4 pillars, move, sleep, eat well, and meditate, they're not just nice ideas. They are the 4 levers brain science has identified for neurological repair.
You can see how they all work together, can't you?
Yeah.
Exercise gives the signal, the BDNF, to regrow. Sleep provides the time and the cleaning crew. Nutrition provides the building materials. And meditation strengthens the CEO who was compromised in the first place.
The system is designed for recovery if we just give it what it needs. And the journalist's final thought really captures the promise here. She says, her brain now works well, maybe even better than ever.
That's the takeaway. The science is not telling you to stop working hard. The message is, it is perfectly fine to work hard in long hours, as long as you take good care of your brain.
Your performance isn't fixed. It's determined by how you maintain the hardware.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We've looked at the damage from cortisol, and we've identified 4 powerful, actionable steps for repair. We've gone from diagnosis to solution.
And, knowledge is powerful, but only when you apply it. We've seen the science, the shrinking branches, the buildup of waste, the power of BDNF. The core message is really a mandate for self-care, but it's backed by neurology.
It really is.
Please be good to your brain. It's the core of who you are. It dictates everything. So treat her like royalty.
And instead of feeling overwhelmed by trying to do all 4 things at once, which is the feeling that causes the problem in the first place, we'd encourage you to just pick one. What single small step from these 4 pillars will you implement today? Will you commit to 5 minutes of just focusing on your breath tonight? Or maybe that 45-minute brisk walk 3 times this week? That choice is the start of rebuilding.
Start small, but start today. And thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the brain under stress.